So another person I spoke to was a guy who was in the parade as a ghostwriter, and his name was Rhino Rittenhouse, and he was a rather colorful person from Ohio.
Why did you come? I came here because I heard this was the con of cons, even better than San Diego or New York or E3. If you have a cosplay and you want to come show it off and you're good, you come here. So I took my chances, with my ghostwriter to bring it down here and just show it off, just like I do back home.
So tell me about your ghostwriter. What all goes into
And just show it off. I came here because I heard this was the con of cons, even better than San Diego or New York or E3. If you have a cosplay and you want to come show it off and you're good, you come here.
So he's being personal about what he enjoys about Dragon Con. You take that and you insert that. Insert silence. Okay. We go back and we get Dan's cut that we just did. Copy it.
I came here because I came here. I came. When I look up,
So it works much like a word processor in that you can drag and drop. And going back to
So what all
Rhino
goes
here.
into your outfit, and kind of warm out here today, but you still have a lot going on regarding your outfit.
It's dedication to craft, man. I mean, I'm sure there's something lighter, but I haven't found anything that looks as good as that. And to me, aesthetic is everything when it comes to this. Every other ghostwriter I've seen as a cosplay has had problems when it comes to the flames. All right, either it's made out of some sort of foam or hair or fabric or tissue paper. So I went looking for files that could be turned into flames, and we ended up with this combination here. And it just turned out way better than I could have hoped. If you look at the helmet here, the flames are red and orange. Those are painted with transparent paint. The inside is printed. It's
You
printed.
said this was your first Dragon Con.
Yeah, first Dragon Con.
What's up?
I raised my kids, man. You got a job to do, and money troubles. Money's tight. My son Logan, Honda Star.
Experience been so far? Folks been cool?
Everyone's been great, super supportive. I haven't had one negative interaction yet. The City of Atlanta PD is pretty good. I do go with the slower server and take pictures when I'm riding around. It's about 500 miles. It took us 8.5 hours, but everything came together and we made it happen. All the love from everybody down here. I haven't had one negative comment about the ghostwriter. It's just nothing short of amazing. I know I keep using that word, but nothing short of amazing.
All right. so now we have 3 bites lined up.
Nothing short of amazing.
What I love about DragonCon most is DragonCon is a place where anybody can be.
I came here because I heard this was the con of cons. Even better than San Diego or New York or E3. If you have a cosplay and you want to come show it off and you're good, you come here.
And
Even better than San Diego or New York. I came here because I heard this was the con of cons.
all right. So at the top of our script, let's see. Just a moment here, I'm finding something right quick. Do what? No, Patty. It's my notepad, so we're going to make do with one. The first cut we used was, we're opening with a cut, so our lead will be for the for the 45th year DragonCon. Is happening in downtown Atlanta. Kimbler is there. Because on that day that I was. And we're opening with cut. Now for television stories, and as Matt will point out, it's very different sitting down and doing sound, but it works really well when you're doing radio to have all of this in a compact area, because you don't need a big wide area, you know, to do radio, and technology has really helped in that regard. So we know that our second cut is Dan Carroll. Remember, they took a year off, so he's saying it's great to be back. Rhino Rittenhouse. That's a heck of a name. But he was a heck of a guy, man. That chopper was far out. Those guys those of you who have seen Ghost Rider in the comics or in the movies, he nailed it. I was going to do actually Ghost Rider this year at the DragonCon parade, but I crashed my motorcycle. So
I told him to go to his house, but he didn't listen.
I hadn't considered doing house, I really had. Let's see, Rhino Rittenhouse. Came from Ohio. Says DragonCon is the place to be. Cut 3. All right, now we have a script. Let me show you how this thing works. I'm gonna change views here for a moment. This is my Shure MV88, and it's a $100 mic, 120, somewhere around there. And it's really, really handy. It works on the Motive software. So I have my script up on my screen. Let's go ahead and get to it. Dan Carroll of DragonCon says it's great to be back. Rhino Rittenhouse came from Ohio and says DragonCon is the place to be. DragonCon happens in the Hotel District every Labor Day. I'm Scott Kimbler. Let's cut that again right quick. Dan Carroll of DragonCon says it is great to be back. Rhino Rittenhouse came from Ohio and says DragonCon is the place to be. DragonCon happens in the Hotel District every Labor Day. Scott Kimbler, GNN. All right. So now that I have that, I can export it. So it's sending it right to my iPad, and I open in Twisted Wave. While that's coming up.
Dan Carroll of DragonCon says it.
So we cut off our excess off the script recording there. And we have our 3 sections. And I want,
Nothing short of amazing.
What I love about DragonCon most is
so I'm gonna go grab my first one, which is Rhino, but not identifying him. And I'm gonna drop him right there. Tighten that up. Let's see, that'll be fine.
Good to be back.
You want the Dan Carroll one? Copy. Paste. You know, years ago, this was done often by me with a telephone and a tape recorder. And I go and grab my third bite.
I came here
There we go.
DragonCon happens in the hotel.
I'll clear up the spaces. There. Now I can send this to Matt, because that's what I would be doing anyway. Let's see, get your phone on here, man. Oops. So Matt's back at the station, just waiting for my DragonCon wrap. Giving him a suggested lead. There, now it's being sent to him, so if you can, make sure that the station's waiting for you to get your report in of whatever story you've covered that particular day, and let me know when you get that. Still waiting?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not even on your file, it'll take just a second.
So when Matt gets it, it's all put together.
Nothing short of amazing.
Dan Carroll of DragonCon says it is great to be back.
What I love about DragonCon most is DragonCon is a place where anybody can be who they want to be, express themselves, feel comfortable in their individuality, but also join with other people who enjoy the same things they love.
Rhino Rittenhouse came from Ohio and says DragonCon is the place to be.
I came here because I heard this was the con of cons. If you have a cosplay and you want to come show it off and you're good, you come here.
DragonCon happens in the Hotel District every Labor Day. Scott Kimbler, GNN.
So see, in that short amount of time, Matt has a wrap from the field with multiple cuts.
As soon as I get my email.
As soon as he gets his email.
Does the email have too many T's in the address?
It may have.
I would get it had it been spelled correctly.
So the way that actually sounded on the air when we did that story is this.
A super great experience, man.
There are rules in place, including wearing masks, social distancing, and proving vaccination for COVID-19. Spokesman Dan Carroll says the regulations were necessary to bring the con back.
I see that DragonCon has met its goal of maintaining social distance while still having a live event for 2021.
Rhino Rittenhouse came as ghostwriter. He said he waited years to come, but says it was worth it.
I heard this was the con of cons. If you have a cosplay and you want to come show it off and you're good, you come here.
Organizers hope for larger crowd limits and fewer rules for 2022. I'm Scott Kimbler.
All right. So there you go. Any questions about using sound in radio or field reporting?
That's great.
Okay. Well, in that case, guys, here's Matt McClure.
On to television. The old TV machine. So, do this. So, hi again. I'm Matt McClure. I'm currently the executive producer for GNN, Georgia News Network. So, I actually got my start in radio in Georgia. I'm a Georgia native and grew up in Gainesville. Worked in Gainesville and Atlanta and WGST and GNN. Then moved to New York for 10 years, where I was an anchor and reporter and most recently actually a business anchor for New York One. Worked from the floor of the New York Stock Exchange for a while, and it was just really, really cool experiences. Wouldn't trade it for the world. Glad to be back home. There's nothing like being home. But glad to be back in Georgia now. I've been for just over a couple of years. But what I wanted to do with TV, being a radio guy who then went into TV, I think I approach sound for TV maybe a little bit differently than most TV reporters do. A lot of TV reporters will focus on your establishing shot of focus on the visual of what you want to do, which is always very important, of course. But the way that I kind of approach it I always want to have that great visual to start with, but the way that I approach it with TV is sort of similar to the way that I approach it with radio. Is I go through and find the best sound, and then I kind of write around that. You know, I kind of make my script around that to fill whatever gaps need to be filled. So anyway, what I wanted to do is focus on basically 3 different types of sound that you can get for TV. The first, let me do this, is actually Nat Sound. So of course, you know, naturally occurring sound in whatever atmosphere you happen to be in at the time. Don't overdo this though. This is one thing that we had a news assistant one time when I was at New York One he would go out and get VOSOTs and they would bring it back, and I remember complimenting him one time on, oh my God, this is such great Nat Sound that you started the story with. Then he would want to do Nat Sound for every story, whether it warranted it or not. So I remember bringing back a story from, it was a nice little VOSOT. It was a hot summer in New York, and they opened up cooling centers, you know, in like libraries and community centers and stuff like that. And so he came back with Nat Sound of an air conditioner running, which was not very compelling TV. So I just cut out the Nat. So if the air conditioner running, also bicycles going by, which don't make a lot of sound. So don't overdo it with the Nat Sound. But then those are things that can really make an impact, especially if you have a story like the one that I'm about to show you here. This is from a story that I did at New York One, which all of these are. But this is from, it's a scenario no one hopes. Let's do that again, so I can shut the heck up. But this is from an active shooter training drill that they did at a hospital in Brooklyn, and we actually got exclusive access to cover it. It was really, I was actually standing kind of in the middle of this room where they were doing the training, and it was intense. So we hoped to convey that, and sound is a big part of it. Here we go. Open the door! It's a scenario no one hopes will ever happen. But it's one these emergency responders at SUNY Downstate Medical Center are now prepared for. Luckily, this was just a drill, with actors playing the roles of the attackers and hospital employees portraying victims, complete with fake wounds. New York One got an exclusive look at the training exercise, part of a seminar to teach workers how to respond to an active shooter incident.
We brought in our team to work through as realistic of a scenario as we could to make sure that their hospital personnel, anyone who might be present during an incident like this would have a little bit advanced training in what to do and what not to do.
Not everything is going to be crystal clear. You have to make determinations. You have to keep your head. You have to keep your wits about you.
Trainers included many people who have first-hand experience in real-life dangerous situations, currently former law enforcement officers and military veterans.
I'm in the Navy, served with the Marines. I've had a couple of deployments recently over in combat theaters where we took care of casualties. So I think that the important lessons are just the experience of how loud, how active, how violent it can be.
It's the first time SUNY Downstate conducted training like this, preparing staff to respond in real time as a tragedy unfolds. An important part of the training is making sure that people learn how to pay attention to the lay of the land, like being able to navigate these hospital corridors.
One of the biggest challenges in society these days is what's called the insider threat. It's someone who works in that environment, who's familiar with the floor plans, who's familiar with the operations, and could essentially use that against you.
I'm not saying, do your background check and, everyone's, a bad guy, but, think outside the box, you never know what could happen.
Officials say more exercises like this will be held in the future. In Prospect Lefferts Gardens, Matt McClure, New York One. And so you see, you sort of set the scene with the sound, and the visual is also part of that when you have, like visuals of people holding obviously fake guns up to someone's head. Like that's something that is going to be very impactful as well. And you notice we had the upper third, the upper right graphic up there the entire time, that there was any sort of training going on so that people knew this was not a real scenario. And that's something that we felt that we had to do because it was something that could kind of be scarring to people if they weren't aware of that. So of course we did the disclaimer with bleed in. We're warning you that what you are about to see might be disturbing to some viewers, that kind of thing, and kept that upper right graphic on the frame the whole time that there was any sort of training going on. You can see there the Nat Sound really sort of sets the scene for that. Next is some emotional sound. when you have a situation that presents itself, and this is a story that I went and covered, I didn't really know how this was going to turn out, if it was going to be something where it might be a kind of a boring story, and then unexpectedly you're interviewing somebody and they get emotional about something, and those are great TV moments when that kind of thing happens. And I was actually very moved by the dad of this young athlete here. But let's take a look.
What did you come here today to looking to do?
Be more athletic.
Be more athletic.
9-year-old Joshua has been through a lot in his young life. 2 years ago, he fell while jumping on a trampoline. His dad says doctors originally thought he sprained his ankle, but it turned out to be much worse, requiring a 12-hour surgery.
Within 4 hours of him coming out of that surgery, it wasn't successful. And, excuse me.
Surgeons eventually had to amputate Joshua's left leg above the knee.
By the grace of God, we're here today is 100%.
Joshua was one of nearly 40 athletes with disabilities at the OSER Running and Mobility Clinic Sunday in East Harlem. The Challenged Athletes Foundation organizes several of the events across the country each year.
Oftentimes people, medical professionals or other folks might tell them they're not able to do something, and they get out here and they learn that they can.
Professional trainers worked with amputees on proper techniques for running and playing sports.
It's harder work than it is for an able-bodied person, but it's not impossible if you just really set your mind to it and give it a lot of time and commitment. It can be done.
Athletes and organizers say not only do participants learn a lot at events like this, they also get a great sense of community from being around people who are going through similar challenges.
I'm a person with a disability, so to see other persons with disabilities want to achieve more, it pushes me to see others doing well.
Organizers were also able to provide Joshua with a brand new prosthesis at Sunday's clinic, free of charge.
It does your heart good. I get paid to be out here, it's my job, but it's also my calling. So that kind of thing is the reason we come out and do this every day.
We might have lost our limb, but we didn't lose the rest of ourselves. But what you have to learn is you have to embrace it.
And it's that kind of attitude that helps these athletes overcome whatever obstacles are in their way. In East Harlem, Matt McClure, New York 1.
You see that? An emotional sound from the dad I thought was like the best thing. Like, obviously he loves his son and was recounting that memory of finding out that his son was gonna lose his leg and, got emotional about that. So it's, finding those moments, they're often unexpected when you're out in the field and you're talking to somebody, and incorporating those and knowing what to incorporate, always keeping your ear open and your eyes open, obviously for TV as well, for the visuals, can really make an impact in a story. It took something that could have just been like an average kind of okay, these people are working out and they're learning how to do stuff, and it made it much more impactful, I think. Now, the last one that I want to share with you in a few minutes that we have left is this is not always something that's gonna happen, but if the opportunity presents itself, because 99.99999% of the time, the story is not about you. You're a reporter, you're out in the field, you are telling the story, you are not part of the story. Generally speaking, there are exceptions to that, one of which I'm gonna show you. Another example would be, I think happened last year, just pre-pandemic, the reporter in Savannah who was out covering the marathon down there and got inappropriately touched by a man as he ran by her on camera, and she obviously became part of the story. It was a national story for a while. So that kind of thing can happen, unfortunately, in that particular scenario. But if the opportunity presents itself in a more fun way to be a part of the story, then do that if you can. This is, I was fortunate enough to work at New York 1 and do, for a couple of years, some stories. I got to travel around to Toronto, to Miami, to cover some things with Disney Cruise Line as they were opening new shows and things like that, and in rehearsals for shows. And I got to go and cover the rehearsals for Frozen at their rehearsal facility in downtown Toronto in Canada. And it was like a super cool experience. And they were offering up different opportunities for the reporters who came to do different sort of interactive things, like for parts of their stories, and to get different elements. And one of those I could not resist taking part in because I have a background in musical theater. and have done quite a bit of that. And so I couldn't resist being a little bit of a part of this story. So watch this, and I just thought this was kind of a fun one to share. Yeah, hi there, Frank. I am here once again in Toronto at the rehearsal facility for Disney Cruise Line, and they're rehearsing here a little something that you might have heard of called Frozen. They're bringing it to the stage on board Disney Wonder a little bit later on this year. Right now, though, they're getting all of it together, the choreography, the staging, all the costumes are coming together and everything. I want to give you a behind-the-scenes look at that process. And I might also have a little bit of a sing-along with the famous princess. Take a look.
That's my sister!
It's the most successful animated feature film of all time, grossing over $1.2 billion worldwide at the box office. Now Disney is bringing Frozen to the stage.
We were excited about the possibility of being able to do a stage show right maybe 3 years ago, from the moment we saw the very first cut of Frozen.
Rehearsals are underway for a 60-minute stage version of the show that's set to debut later this year on board the Disney Wonder. The blockbuster is also slated for the Great White Way in 2018. While the creative teams are different, producers say the cruise ship and Broadway versions will share some similarities.
The shows are going to be very, very different. We recently opened a show in California, Disney California Adventure. That one and ours are extremely different. Right? The Broadway show we expect to be the same in a very different, great way, but we are all collaborating so that we're not stepping on toes, and we are creating three unique, great products for the audience.
On the high seas, the production will feature all the songs from the film, plus everyone's favorite characters like princesses Anna and Elsa, and of course, Olaf the snowman.
He's so innocent. He never realizes what he's saying. And he doesn't realize he's funny. He doesn't realize he's actually wise at times.
Tony Award-nominated director Cheryl Keller helms the musical. For her, the driving force of the story is the relationship between two sisters.
I'm the mother of two daughters, so when I got the phone call about this, I just said I'm in. I didn't know where I was doing it. I didn't know how I was doing it.
Producers say new cutting-edge technology will immerse the audience in the story, especially one of the most climactic moments when Elsa finally unleashes her magical powers and builds her ice castle during the mega hit song.
Her journey of getting past that and seeing the joy that it can bring, and I think that's something that a lot of people can connect to, and I can connect to personally.
And I got the chance to sing along with Elsa. Spoiler alert, the song has a new dramatic ending. There you have it. Looks like a very cool show, pun intended. It really does look very yeah, give me a good pun and I'm there. But yeah, so that was fun. Like, that was a cool experience. And you know, obviously that's one that's not going to happen every day. But look for those opportunities. And my sort of bottom line is, obviously for TV, visuals have to be top of mind, but don't let sound go by the wayside. Pick the best, most compelling moments of sound and make those an integral part of what you're doing. Because obviously the visual is obviously a thing, but make sure that the sound does not get neglected in the process, all right? Any questions, any TV related questions before you have to wrap up?
I'm Chuck Williams, I'm at WRB out in Columbus, and you made the move from radio to TV. I made the move from print to TV 3 years ago, to on-air TV.
Yeah.
And sound has been the most difficult part, one of the most difficult parts. The writing part, I was long-form narrative, investigative reporter, that's been fairly easy. But looking for sound, because I look for meteor, stuff, and you need shorter, quicker stuff that's more powerful, the sound, and that was one of the things in all three of your stories. You did a great job with the quickness of getting to the point with the stories. How do you, with somebody whose training is long form, how do you really work to get sound quicker and tighter?
Yeah, one of my sort of, I guess, tricks of the trade is if you have a good soundbite but it's longer, and it's like longer and meatier, as you say, one of my sort of tricks is, okay, what is the most impactful part of this soundbite, and how can I then, as the reporter, lead into that? How can I take you know, the idea of maybe the other half of the soundbite or the other, you know, 2/3 of the soundbite that they were saying, and, you know,
So
lead into, yeah. So use your reporter track as a lead in to whatever shorter portion of that soundbite you can. If that makes sense. It's like sort of taking the idea of what they're saying, conveying a good portion of it to then lead into them giving, say, the more emotional part or something like that. So what they're doing is very impactful. You're giving the information, but then you have like an impactful, shorter bite of them, you know, either reacting or continuing that idea that you have led into. So yeah, use the lead into a soundbite for that, or on the other side of the soundbite, come out of it sort of, you know, finishing that thought. If somebody said, oh, this is such a scary situation, and she says that's because the guy, you know, held a knife to her or whatever it was.
And I found myself more in the last 6 months breaking those longer sound bites rather than 24-second.
Yeah.
I will like 10 and 14 or whatever,
right,
with some type of transition
yeah,
in there. But that also makes the package longer.
yeah.
And that's been a battle for somebody who's come from.
Right. Yeah, word economy. Those are that's the term that we coined years ago at DUN. That you know, something to, you know, brevity and word economy are concepts to always keep in mind. I will write a script and then I'll look at it again and say, okay, how can I say this in a shorter, more efficient way? And so that's my, you know, one of my sort of things that I always do. When I get a script laid out, I always have to jot it down because I always put too much stuff in it. And then I'll get, you know, the soundbite that I want maybe in there, and you know, in TV, I'll be like, oh, this is like 2:30 and it needs to be minute 59 or less or whatever the parameters are. And I'm like, okay, let me go and chop up some sound bites or take out part of the track here or there. Like if there's some non-essential information that you can take out, take that out. Like if there was some color that you added or something like that that you can take out, you know, take that out. So it's a thing that kind of comes with time, but those are some of the things to look for.
Yeah, we're in the middle right now of the DA and the document. So my inclination is to get as much crammed in there.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things too to keep in mind with that is that if you do cram too much information, especially into a short period of time, their eyes will just sort of glaze over. Same thing with numbers. So one thing that I learned being a business reporter is if you throw too many numbers at people, it's like they're going to be like, wait, what did the guy just say? You know. So keeping that kind of stuff simple and not cramming every detail. Like the DA faces charges, including racketeering and you know, negligent homicide or whatever it is. And then, you know, you don't have to list a laundry list of the other 19 charges that he might face or whatever like that. Just be like, including the top 2 most serious or whatever, and then move on.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Anything? I know we have to go. We're actually just a couple minutes over our time. But if anybody has any questions, any comments, anything like that, feel free to ask. But otherwise, you're free to go.